Have you planted your cucumbers out, done everything properly, and the very next morning they are hanging there like wet washing? Before you grab the watering can, stop for a moment. With cucumbers, the first week after planting is often where people go wrong. Not because they have done too little, but because they panic and do too much. Cucumbers are not tomatoes. They do not have the same toughness. They hate cold soil. They sulk after being moved, and they really do not enjoy sitting in wet compost on a chilly night. So today, let's keep it simple. Here is what to do with cucumber plants during the first 7 days after planting them out, whether they are in a greenhouse, a polytunnel, or a sheltered bed on the allotment. Day 1 and Day 2. You plant the cucumber, water it in properly, and then leave it alone. That is the job. Do not keep poking around the compost. Do not top it up with more water just because the leaves look a bit tired. Do not start feeding it because you think it needs a boost. At this stage, the roots are stressed. The plant has just been moved, and it is not drinking in the same way it was before. If the compost was moist when you planted it, let it settle. What the cucumber needs most in those first couple of days is calm, warmth, and air. In Britain, the tricky bit is the changeable weather. You can have a sunny afternoon where the greenhouse gets surprisingly hot, followed by a cold evening that knocks the plant back. So keep an eye on temperature. If the greenhouse gets stuffy in the middle of the day, open the door or vents. A cucumber can wilt in strong heat, especially behind glass, and that does not always mean it needs water. Sometimes it simply needs fresh air. But at night, be careful. If the forecast drops close to 1 or 2 degrees Celsius, give the plants extra protection. Horticultural fleece inside the greenhouse can make a real difference. A cloche or a bit of fleece over young plants outside can also help. Cold nights are one of the main reasons cucumbers stop growing in the UK. The plant may still look alive, but it sits there doing nothing because the roots are too cold. In the morning, you might see slightly pale leaves or a bit of curling. That usually means the plant has been chilled. It is not always a disaster, but it is better to prevent it. Day 3 and Day 4. Now you start observing the plant properly. Look at the cucumber first, not the compost. It is normal if the leaves droop a little during a warm afternoon. Cucumbers lose moisture quickly through their leaves. If the plant picks up again by the morning, that is usually fine. It is also normal if you do not see much new growth yet. The plant may be working underground, settling its roots into the new compost or soil. Do not expect miracles on Day 3. A lower leaf may look tired, pale, or a bit battered. That can happen after planting out. The lower leaves take the stress first. What matters most is the growing tip. Look at the top of the plant and the young leaves. If they are alive, fresh, and not collapsing, the plant is probably moving in the right direction. But there are warning signs. If the whole plant is still drooping first thing in the morning, not just in afternoon warmth, something is wrong. If the leaves are turning pale all over, yellowing badly, or the growing tip looks dead, then check 3 things. First, check the temperature of the soil or compost. Second, check whether it is too wet or too dry. Third, check the air in the greenhouse or polytunnel. Most early cucumber problems come from one of those 3. Now let's talk about watering on Day 3 or Day 4. Do not judge by the surface. The top of the compost can look dry while it is still damp underneath. Push your finger down about 5 centimeters. If it feels moist, leave it alone. If it feels dry at that depth, water gently, not a flood. Just enough to moisten the root area. For a young cucumber plant, around 1 litre to 1.5 litres is usually enough, depending on the size of the plant and the container or bed. Cucumbers like moisture, but they do not like cold, soggy roots. In the UK, where the air is often damp and nights can be cool, overwatering is a very common mistake. One more thing. Do not loosen the soil right next to the stem. Cucumber roots are shallow and spread close to the surface. If you start scratching around the base of the plant, you can damage the fine roots just when the plant is trying to settle. If you really need to break a crust on the surface, do it away from the stem, very gently. But in the first week, it is often better to leave it alone. Day 5, Day 6, and Day 7. By now, the cucumber should be starting to show signs that it has settled. The growing tip should look alive. A new leaf may be starting to open. The stem should stand more firmly. The plant should look fairly fresh in the morning, even if it softens a little later in the day. If you see that, do not interfere. Do not suddenly start feeding it just because a week has passed. Cucumbers do not need feeding by the calendar. They need feeding when they have actually rooted in and started growing. If you prepared the planting hole with good compost or well-rotted organic matter, that is enough for the beginning. The roots are still finding their way. A strong liquid feed too early can do more harm than good. Wait until the plant is clearly growing. Once it is producing new leaves and looking settled, then you can think about feeding. If by Day 7 the cucumber has not grown much, but it still looks alive, do not panic. Check the soil temperature. This is especially important outdoors, but it also matters in an unheated greenhouse. Cucumbers will not grow properly in cold soil, even if the air feels warm during the day. That is one of the big differences between cucumbers and tomatoes. Tomatoes can put up with cooler conditions for longer. Cucumbers are fussier. They want warmth at the roots, so the first week is not about pushing the plant, it is about helping it settle. Here is the simple version. Day 1 and Day 2. Plant it, water it in, and leave it alone. Watch the temperature and make sure there is ventilation during warm spells. Day 3 and Day 4. Look at the plant, then check the compost. Water only if it is genuinely dry below the surface. Do not disturb the roots near the stem. Day 5 to Day 7. Look for signs that the plant has taken. A fresh growing tip, a new leaf, and a steady stem are all good signs. If it is alive but not moving, check the warmth around the roots before you blame the plant. That is the whole plan. No magic mixtures, no panic feeding, no endless fiddling. In the first week, a cucumber plant does not need heroics. It needs warmth, fresh air, steady moisture, and a gardener who can resist the urge to keep bothering it.